Hi everyone, and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Thursday, June 22nd, 2023, and this is episode 259. My name is Carol. I am known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry, and I live east of Vancouver in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada, where we are enjoying a beautiful sunny day. We've just come through a stretch of cool, wet weather. I mean, I was wearing flannel shirts and wool socks. That's how cold it was. So I am happy to see that we are going to have sunny skies and temperatures in the mid-20s Celsius for the foreseeable future. Plants have all now had a good drink, and I think the sunshine will do them good too. Thank you so much for all your positive feedback regarding last week's episode, which I had recorded outside. I was very concerned that the sounds of the dogs from the nearby kennel and the traffic noises would be very distracting, but many of you said you didn't even really notice them and that you enjoyed the bird song and urged me to record outdoors again. So I will definitely be doing that in the future. Thank you. I considered doing that again today, but at this time of the day, it's hard to find just the right spot in the backyard that's not too sunny. Not to mention that my neighbor has been doing something with a saw all morning, so that's not exactly conducive to recording either. So here we are back in the craft room. Before I tell you what I've been working on this week, just a reminder that there are a couple of make-alongs taking place in the Ravelry group. The year-long chatter thread called Another Year of Stash, and the monthly make-along called the Yarn of the Month Club. So if you think you might be interested in participating in one or both of those, head on over to the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group. Check out the first post in each of the pertinent threads and join along if you'd like to. I'd love to see you there. We are coming up to the end of the month, so make sure if you are or have been participating in the May Yarn of the Month Club that you get your project finished up by the end of June and post it in the thread by the end of the month. And I'll announce the winners for both make-alongs on the next episode. So speaking of the May Yarn of the Month Club, I am wearing my project. I finally finished my ondos blouse by Valentina Bogdanova of Valentina's Knits. I knit this sweater from two bases from Ching Fiber. One is the merino single and the other is the kid mohair silk, both in the dew colorway. I knew going into this project that I would have to make some modifications because I only had one skein of the kid mohair silk and I needed about 1.5 to complete the project as designed. Here is what the sweater is supposed to look like. It was this beautiful yoke that caught my eye, this gorgeous wavy lace pattern, which inspired the name of the design. Ondos means waves in Portuguese. So I knew that my sleeves were going to have to be shorter, and I also knew that I would most likely have to add some of the merino singles to the bottom of the sweater. So I knit the smallest size, which is designed to fit a 30-inch bust, which I do not have. But the pattern calls for about 9 inches of positive ease, which is way more ease than I'm comfortable with. And so my finished sweater has a circumference of approximately 39 inches to fit my approximately 36-inch bust. And I'm really happy with the sizing. So I'm just gonna show you first this gorgeous, gorgeous yoke up close. And then I'm going to, well, here, tickling my nose here. Oh. That always happens. I'm going to push this ironing board that you're sitting on back, and I'll stand up and so you can see the sweater all finished. So hang on, here we go. I think I have to go a little bit further. Let's see. Move this chair out of the way. Yep, I'm going to go, oh, I'm going to go a little bit further so you can see me talking too. There. So there we go. I'm going to just crouch down a little bit. So as you can see, I did add some ribbing at the bottom, and I knit the sleeves straight till I ran out of yarn, and then I added about an inch of 1x1 twisted ribbing here. What I did before I added the ribbing is I decreased the stitches by half. Just did a rapid decrease because I wanted kind of a puffed sleeve effect. When I first bound off the sleeves, I used Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, but they were too tight. And so I took the bind off back and I redid it, and I used the same bind off, but instead of just doing one yarn over on the knit stitches, I did 2 yarn overs, and that made them great. And then blocking softened them up a little bit too. So as you can see, they are tight enough to kind of sit in place to allow this fabric to drape over them, but they are not so tight that they cut off my circulation. Now, I really debated over the length of the sweater. I'm just wearing it over a sundress at the moment, but as I was knitting it, I kept trying it on with this kind of a dusty rose camisole that I own. And I kind of aimed for this mohair section and the bottom of the camisole to coincide so that there wouldn't be an obvious line where the camisole ended and the sweater continued. Since I've blocked it, the sweater has grown a little bit, as I suspected it might, and I am considering taking off about half the ribbing here. I think that will put the sweater at a better height. This is kind of where my hip bones are, and I also think that it will not look quite as heavy on the bottom. I think that I would prefer just a little bit of a lighter look here. So I'm going to sit back down again. Actually, I should just give you a little twirl so you can see. So there's from the front. I've kind of got my knees bent so I'll fit in the frame. There you go. I'm going to sit back down. I'm going to bring the ironing board closer, and I'm going to take my sweater off because it is much too warm for it. So I'll be right back. Okay, that is better, although I still have an itchy nose. That mohair really does get into everything. So I wanted to use up as much of the yarn as possible. And this is what I had left of the mohair when I was done. I might have gotten one more round done on the sleeves, but I didn't want to take a chance. And then I had like this much left of the merino single. I was thinking maybe I could have gotten one more round of ribbing, but then when I measured, I'm pretty sure I stopped at just the right spot. But then, as I mentioned, I am thinking about shortening that ribbing. So we'll see. Sometimes what I find with the sweaters with the superwash wool is that they will stretch with blocking, but then sometimes they kind of go back to their original form and shorten up. So I don't think I'll do it right away. But we'll see. But yes, isn't that just gorgeous? I am just so happy to have finally finished this blouse. I think it's just such an exquisite design. And if you haven't already, check out Valentina Bogdanova's patterns on Ravelry. She has many, many lovely designs. I don't think this is the last of her patterns that I will be knitting. So yeah, one last look. So gorgeous. And I am just so happy to be done. I finished June's Yarn of the Month Club last week, as I showed you, and for the first time in a long time, I feel kind of ahead of the game, which is a refreshing change. All right, let's move on to works in progress. I have 3, 2 of which you have seen and 1 new one. So first up are the Cooper's Hawk socks I'm knitting from Fiber Nymph Dye Works. It's the Heavenly Base in the Cooper's Hawk colorway. The Heavenly Base is a merino cashmere nylon base. This was part of the Backyard Birdwatchers Club last year. Came with a skein of self-striping and also 2, whoops, just about spilled my tea there, 2 20-gram minis to coordinate. And as you can see, I've used some of this one. So I have been working, oops, I just dropped my yarn, that's okay. I've been working on the 2 socks concurrently, and I have just finished the gusset decreases on both of them. So I am using the Heel Toe Do-Si-Do pattern by Kay Litton. Although I did do a different ribbing. I think hers called for 1x1 twisted rib, but I just did a 2x2 rib, and I like it because it's just a very simple pattern that just brings some interest to a self-striping yarn, but it's only 2 row repeats, so it's super easy to remember and follow, you know, make sure you're doing the right row. And then I did a complementary traditional heel flap and gusset, and as I mentioned, I'm just finished the decreases and I'm working my way down the foot. So I'm using a 2mm needle, and this is a 64 stitch. I think that's the medium size. And I'm just gonna move this out of the way, and then you can see there's my other one from the front. Yeah, it's just a really nice chevron pattern. I like the way it plays with the stripes, and then the back is just plain. So, enjoying those very, very much. The yarn feels heavenly. No pun intended. Yes, it was. That was intended. But it does. It feels really awesome. I am also working on another pair of socks. It's the second pattern from Helen Stewart's Handmade Sock Society for this year, and they're called the Feather Vein Socks. I am knitting them. I just realized my yarn is tucked away in a bag here. A matching bag, I might add, because the yarn is this very, very bright yellow, so they go together nicely. This is yarn from Sweet Fiber, who is fairly local to me. It's the Super Sweet Sock in the Electric Daffodil colorway. And this was part of the Spring 2023 Sock Yarn Club. And so, I have sock number 2 cast on, and I've done a few rows of ribbing. So that means that sock number 1 is done. Let me show it to you. Just trying to figure out where to put things, as always. There we go. Isn't that beautiful? It's a lovely lace and cable pattern that runs down the front, and then once again, you just have plain knitting on the back. So you get half a rest round every round. So yeah, I think they're lovely. Again, it's a traditional heel flap and gusset. This one has a 1x1 twisted rib cuff. My usual rounded toe. Again, 2mm needle, 64 stitches. So well on my way to finishing those before the next pattern is released. I'm not sure if it's coming up next week or the week after, but I'm gonna turn my attention to finishing these up pretty soon so that I can be ready to knit the next one when it comes out. What I didn't mention is that this yarn is part of my personal sock yarn club for this year. This was from bag number 5, I believe. So I am kind of behind on that if I think about knitting one skein a month from there, but oh well, it is what it is. I am not losing any sleep over it. That's just the way this year's gone, and knitting's supposed to be fun. And this year I am participating in Fiber Nymph Dye Works Stop Shooting on Yourself Mal, the soy mal. And the whole concept behind that, the whole premise behind it is that you shouldn't be worrying about what you should be doing, but do what you want to be doing. And I am trying to embrace that, which can be kind of difficult for me because I do tend to live with these ideas of what needs to be done, even when it's just knitting. I mean, just because I'm, you know, worked on my ondos blouse and it was supposed to be done by the end of June, like I can't win any prizes for my own make along, so it's not like it absolutely, you know, has to be done. But I sort of have those parameters in my head. Just like, even though I didn't even intend to do the Handmade Sock Society this year, now in my head I want to try and finish the pair before the next pattern comes out. So I am working very hard, but it's tough for me. But my third work in progress is totally an impulsive cast on, and there is no should about it at all. So I was in my local yarn shop last week looking for a needle to help me finish my ondos blouse, and actually I was really pleased to find that they had ChiaoGoo interchangeable tips in a 3mm size. I didn't even know they existed. My kit came with 2.75 and 3.25, and I needed another, I wanted another 3mm, 80 centimeter needle so I could do magic loop on both sleeves at the same time. And so I was going there with the idea of getting a new circular needle, and then learned that they actually just had the tips for the ChiaoGoo interchangeables. So that's way more versatile and practical. So that's what I did, is bought a set of the 3mm tips. So if you weren't aware that they came in a 3mm and you were interested, be sure to check that out. In any case, I set my needles and some wool wash aside and just wandered the store as you do. And I was attracted to a store sample for a summer sweater and ended up buying the yarn for it. I so rarely do that, very rarely, you know, buy something based on a sample in a store, but I just thought it was really cute. So this is a pattern by Allison Green for Barocco. It's called Etta, and there you can see just a very simple top-down yoked summer sweater. Very similar silhouette to the one I just knit. And I decided to go for a different color, a different colorway. I can't remember what the store sample, what colorway it was knit in. Different than the pattern, I know that. But I chose this colorway with the greens and purples and rose colored. So this is called Summer Sesame. This is color 5261, which is called Garden. And it's comprised of 47% cotton, 47% cotton, did I say that? 44% acrylic and 9% nylon. There's 295 yards or 270 meters for 100 grams. The gauge on it is 20 to 21 stitches on a 4 to a 4.5 millimeter needle. So I feel like it's kind of like a light worsted heavy DK. That's how I would describe the gauge. Like cotton yarns do, there's not as much give to this yarn as, you know, a wool yarn, but I'm not finding it too bad. There are some little, I don't know if you can see, there are some little slubby bits like that. So you do feel those as you knit, and they tend to sometimes kind of catch on the needle or in the stitches. Like when you do a stitch and bring up the loop, sometimes it gets stuck on that little slub. But in general, I'm really enjoying working on this project. I have done all the yoke increases. It has a very simple eyelet pattern. I've finished all the yoke decreases. Actually, you probably see it best here on the back. And I've just finished doing short rows to raise the back, and so that the back is higher than the front. Although this is the back, it would sit like, well, will sit something like that when I wear it. And I just have a few more rows of plain knitting to do before I divide for the body and sleeves. So I started this earlier this week, can't remember, Tuesday or something, and really loving it. It matches this sundress. Not sure that I would wear this sweater or even the ondos blouse with this dress. That was just more for convenience for recording, although this probably wouldn't look too bad over top of this. It's the right green for sure. But anyway, yeah, just really enjoying this. I have to say the only thing is that when I kind of got home and bought the pattern and sort of calculated the cost, it's kind of pricey for just a sleeveless summer top. The pattern alone was about $11 Canadian, which is quite high, I think, for what it is. But it is well written, and it does include, besides doing the short rows, for the shaping, it also has waist shaping, so I was happy to see that. And so you know, it's a good pattern. I'm also thinking that if it fits how I like, that this would be easily adaptable to a wool yarn, maybe something self-striping like our like color blocked, or self-striping like the Cascade Heritage Wave, for instance, or any sort of self-striping, kind of random striping yarn, color-changing yarn, I guess that's the way to put it. And I could see it with long sleeves, so could even do stripes. So I do think in the end, if this turns out the way I'm hoping, you know, I may be able to put this pattern to use another time. There was another summer Barocco yarn next to this one, had another sample, and then when I got home and I was looking at the projects for that yarn, I can't remember what it's called, I'll put it here on the screen. There was another pattern that I was quite drawn to by Amy Christopher's that is not the sample sweater that was knit up, but it was another sweater knit from that yarn, and it's got me tempted also. But one thing at a time. So it's not the sweater that I had envisioned casting on after finishing the ondos blouse, but I am enjoying working on that very much. So I'm glad I just kind of listened to my heart and not worried too much about things. Yeah, so this pattern, see, that was the thing. The sample in the store was the smallest size, and it called for 2 balls of this, which is, I think that's what drew me to it also, is like, oh, I can get a little sweater out of 2 skeins of yarn. Well, that's not so bad. But then when I really looked into it, I realized for my size, which is the second size, that I was going to need to go into a 3rd ball. So that added, you know, more cost to the project. But oh well, I think it's going to be lovely. Life. So last Saturday, our older granddaughter graduated from high school. Was her commencement ceremony, and for the first time they held it in our local Coliseum. I know when our kids graduated, they held the ceremony in a very large church, and I think your tickets were limited to something like 4 per student, which gets really tough if you have 2 parents and 2 sets of grandparents, for instance. And in this case, each student, I think, got 4 tickets, and then additional tickets could be purchased, which is what we did. So she had quite a number of onlookers. She had her our daughter and son-in-law, her 2 siblings, and an aunt and uncle, and us, and then also her mom was there with a cousin and a couple of her friends sitting together. So she had lots of people cheering for her. She accepted her certificate, and she looked really lovely. The ceremony was great. I was thinking, oh boy, it's going to be long. There were, forget how many grads, 300 and something, I want to say. But it actually went pretty quickly, and they had some nice musical selections that the choir did, and some First Nations people doing some drumming. It was a very nice ceremony, I have to say. And it wasn't as impersonal as I thought it might be, being in the Coliseum, but it was decorated very nicely. They did a really great job. So I guess there are 3 high schools in town, and they held all 3 of the ceremonies there on 3 consecutive days. And then we went back to our daughter's place and had a little get together, and our 2 sons and partners came over for that, and so yeah, it was a nice little celebration. Then the following day, I was back over there. It was Father's Day, and our son-in-law was smoking some pork belly, which I had never had before. Oh, wow, was it ever good. It was so juicy and tender. Our younger granddaughter asked her dad how he got the meat so soft. So he also did some macaroni and cheese. I brought over a salad. Our older son and his wife brought an appetizer. And we had some apple pie for dessert. So it was a very nice get-together again for that. Tonight I am going out for dinner with our daughter for my Mother's Day gift. So she's taking me out for Indian food tonight. So looking forward to that. Cameron's not a big fan of Indian food, so it's not a place we ever go together, or the kind of food we ever, order in or go out for at the same time. And so it'll be nice to go with somebody who also likes it as much as I do. Cameron is away. He's been away since Sunday morning. He returns Sunday evening, and then he goes in Monday for some surgery. And then he'll be off for the entire following week. So I told him, just think of it as a forced vacation. It'll be like a little staycation for us, and the weather's supposed to be nice, so it shouldn't be too bad to just hang out at home, and he can read to his heart's content. We can sit out in the backyard, enjoy the sunshine and the birds and the flowers. And from what we understand, the recovery time for this is not too long. So all should be well. Cross fingers that it is. I was supposed to go on Monday to go pick our son up from the Vancouver airport. He has been in Ireland all week. And when his girlfriend realized that it was the same day as Cameron's surgery, she contacted me and said that she was able to, she thought she'd be able to take the afternoon off in lieu of some overtime she was putting in this week, and would I like her to go get him. And I thought, well, I could just say, no, that's fine, but really, I really appreciated her offer, because we're not sure yet what time Cameron's schedule or surgery is scheduled for. He was going to take a cab to the hospital if necessary. Now it doesn't matter. I can drive him there, and I can be close by just in case something happens. So totally appreciated her offer. I didn't want to, I knew everyone was working, so I knew I was sort of the one that was available, so I didn't want to say no, I couldn't do it. And so I'm glad there was an alternative solution to that. So as a result of our little staycation, I will not be recording next week. I'm going to take a week off to just hang out and enjoy some together time, especially after a week apart. And so I should be back with you the following week if everything goes as planned. At the moment, I don't anticipate anything getting in the way of that. But you never know, right? So that leaves me with something good. And my something good this week is that I mended some things that I have been putting off, in one case, over a decade. So here's how it all started. When I was visiting my nephew and his wife and the new baby last week, my nephew's wife, they'd been having problems with their dryer, and it had destroyed some things. And one thing that it had affected was this beautiful knitted blanket that my niece had made for them. That would be my nephew's sister, so auntie. And so she had made this gorgeous, gorgeous blanket. I didn't look up all the names of all these things. I'm going to put them at the bottom of the screen. I looked at her Ravelry page, and she didn't have the yarn listed. But yes, it's a gorgeous blanket. So it had gotten holes in it in 2 different places and laddered down. So my nephew's wife was right on it and tied off the ends so it couldn't get ruined anymore. But she asked her sister-in-law, my niece, if she had any more of the yarn and if she'd be able to fix it. And she doesn't live in town here. And she said, well, Auntie Carol's the expert. You should ask her. And so she did. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do anything, but honestly, it happened to unravel in a really handy spot just along a couple of these pearl edges. And so I was able to just get a crochet hook and ladder back from the wrong side and fasten those ends. And like I would have to really look to see where I even fixed them. I'm not going to bother doing that. Just suffice it to say that a non-knitter wouldn't even notice, and a knitter would have to look pretty hard to find the right spot. So I was happy about that. So then after I did that, I came in my craft room here to do some tidy up. And I have an old trunk that used to be my husband's grandmother's, sitting across the room there. And on top of that trunk have been a couple of projects that have needed mending for a while. One is this shawl. I think this is Edinburgh Lanes by Helen Stewart. And there was, I pulled it out of a drawer or something, and there was one little spot where there had been like a little nibble. A thread had broken, I'm guessing from a moth or something. And again, I'm just looking to see if I can show you where I fixed it. And I can't, so that's a good sign. Anyway, it was one little stitch. It's been sitting on that trunk for probably a year or two. And finally, I dug out the yarn I needed and fixed it. Yeah, I can't even tell. Somewhere around here, somewhere in this section here. So, yay, I can wear this again because I think it's really pretty. It's all my colors. It's a really nice shawl. So I was pleased about that. Another project that's been sitting there for a long time, like years, is this sweater that I had knit for my husband. Not sure how well it's going to show up in the light. It's a shawl collar ribbed pullover. And again, there was some holes, probably from moths, in the elbow on the right sleeve here. And I pulled out the yarn, I had extra, and I sat down and I fixed it. Now, this one you can see. It's not quite as clean a fix because the damage was more extensive, but it's not bad. And this is a non-superwash wool, so it will kind of felt anyway, so I don't anticipate any of the ends continuing to come out here. And yeah, can you see it like that? Yes. Do I think you're going to really notice it when he's wearing it? No. I'm pretty sure no one's going to be looking for it, and he can wear it again. I know last winter a couple times he mentioned it. And yeah, it's been years since I finished this. So, in addition to that, I had also sewn a button on a pair of my husband's shorts. That the shorts had probably been sitting there for a good month. And I thought, well, I'm kind of on a roll. I wonder if I should pull out that shawl. So my daughter knit a beautiful lace shawl for me and gave it to me for Christmas the year our grandson was born. And he's 12 and a half. And I know my memory's a little bit vague. I believe what happened is that she knit this shawl over quite a long period of time, and she had, I think, a basket or a project bag next to her chair, and I think at some point she went to pick it up and noticed some moth damage or carpet beetle or something. Some critter had been eating it, and I can't remember. I feel like she called me and asked me to fix it and said, please don't look, please don't look, this is your Christmas present, but I need help. So I feel like I had fixed one of those areas, but then I also know either she was going to run out of yarn or the yarn she had was moth damaged, because I do know that she ordered another skein of yarn. And this yarn is from Ocean Wind Knits, dyed by Lori, who is someone I used to work with. And she now lives back east and continues to, as far as I know, continues her Ocean Wind Knits business. Haven't ordered from her for a while. So I know that yarn on the bottom is a little bit different because they were dyed at different times. So she gave this shawl to me at Christmas, and then I don't know if it was that day or when I got home and was looking at it, I realized that there was more moth damage. And so she ended up giving me the yarn to fix it, and I finally did. Can you believe it's been that long? I mean, that's ridiculous. I freely admit that I'm a procrastinator when it comes to things I don't want to do, but come on. It took me about a half an hour maybe. I think there were 2 or 3 spots that had holes. Again, I think I did a pretty good job. If you were to look really critically, you could probably find it, find them, but they are not super obvious even to me who knew, you know, who did it. Yeah, I don't even know where they are. So I really should put this beautiful shawl to use. I'm going to, I think again, just move this ironing board back so I can hold this shawl up and show it to you, because it's just gorgeous. And she put all that work into it. What a shame that it's just been in a drawer for literally over a decade. So there. Coming back. So yeah, everything now that's been taking up space on my trunk, those items, and my husband's shorts, and then pulled this out of the drawer, fixed it. So all of my knitting that needs mending is done, and it just feels so good, so satisfying. All right, I think that is it for this week. So thanks as always for watching. Thank you for all of your comments and encouragement and support. Really appreciate it. What are you guys working on? I always like to hear. I'm a little bit behind in the Ravelry thread and comments, but not too bad. So I'm going to be checking out some of your projects there. Have yourselves a great couple of weeks. Happy Canada Day in advance to my Canadian neighbors. It may even be after July 4th when I record next, so happy Independence Day to my neighbors in the South. Yeah, so have a great couple of weeks, and I will see you again then. Bye for now.